Hi everybody, I'm Chris DeLeon, mostly known for Home Team Game Dev, but today I'm talking about that doing business isn't bad. This has been close to my heart because I know a lot of really smart, talented artists, programmers, writers, teachers, all sorts of folks just feel like it's gross and don't want to touch it and feel guilty about promoting their stuff, charging for their stuff. I want to try to fix that. One disclaimer, I've given away a ton of stuff. Free games, free content. I'm not saying there's no room in the world for free stuff. If you're practicing, if you're learning, if you're just trying to build audience or really help total beginners, it's all valid. But the things that I've done as a business are what people mostly really use and get an impact out of, and that's part I want to try to make the case for why it's important to promote your stuff and feel okay about doing it. General structure is why we feel bad about doing business, telling people about your work, charging for your work, and selling at a price worth selling. So this is both an old and a new thought. This is from Walden 170 years ago. Trade curses everything it handles. This is a Blue Sky post from a few days ago. Monetization ruins everything. Molly Crabapple's book. Artists are told to not care about commerce. It's just tangled up in us, and we feel this, and we've seen this, and have a theory of what's going on there. So there's a story from the self-help community about a baby that falls off of a couch and develops a fear of couches. Instead of a fear of falling, which means it's not actually avoiding the real problem, it's often used, for example, you've had one bad relationship, so you avoid all relationships instead of being like, just, why did it not work with Becky? And so I think that in a lot of cases, we've had bad experiences. We've seen business do damage. I want to say bad business is bad. Business isn't inherently bad if it's not done the bad ways. So who here hates librarians? Show of hands. Who hates librarians? Great. Okay, well, one person, we'll deal with that later. What does a librarian do? A librarian helps us find what we want to find, right? I'm green. I want to find the green book. The librarian says, oh, it's that one over there. My day is better. Ah, bless librarians. What does a salesperson do? A salesperson is actually representing a book or a game or a service or whatever else. And done correctly, they're finding who wishes they knew about it. Now, this is very proactive. Maybe they didn't even know to look for it. Is sales better than librarians? Something to think about. So why you should care is that if we do not learn to do business right, sometimes we wind up working for people who do business wrong. And again, this adds to our frustrations and adds to our guilt and our hang-ups about it. Or 2025 reason, business types may try to replace your writing, your teaching, your code with Gen AI. Trying to cut you out and sell flop to your customers, people you trained your whole life to serve. If what you do for your craft of teaching or programming is important, and you want people to have quality work, you have to learn to cut them out. Let's learn how to do business from our side. So game devs, stop apologizing for promoting your work, charging for it, and charging a price you have to. 3 main ideas that I'm going to use today are tuber repair, free burritos, and door-to-door book sales. Naturally. Tuber repair is that if you keep good work to yourself, it's actually kind of selfish. People need what you're doing. If you know how to fix tubas, and there's people in the world with broken tubas, it's kind of a moral obligation to make sure they can find you and don't have their broken tubas, feeling sad, while also you're just sitting there not using your skills, right? Now, obviously, there's lots of other ways we help people. They're bored. They want to share an experience with somebody. Maybe their business has stress we can help them with. Maybe they've had a skill we could teach them. There's things that we can do with our crafts and our skills and our knowledge. It's on us to find the people who need it. For some reason, our natural reflex is like, should I start my Broken Tuba podcast or YouTube? And I speak from experience. I don't think that's the best idea. I think you should find existing audiences. Now, again, I've lived this. I got my little silver YouTube award. I got my podcast listeners, my niche audience. But you get what I call the loose apples in the tree problem. So if you shake a tree to find the apples, right? So I got my 80,000 Twitter followers and I blast out, who wants this offer I have? They're kind of the ones who are ready to get that offer. It takes a long time to grow another tree. If instead you bounce around and make your case to shake other people's trees, there might be fewer loose apples in it. It might be a smaller tree, but there's a lot more trees in the forest. So your time's probably better spent on making your case, which again is part of sales. How do I get myself to be a guest on podcasts or YouTubes or et cetera, et cetera? Promoting your work will lead you to pay attention to who actually wants it. And if you can't find people who want it, we listen to what people want and we factor back into what we do next. I think listening to people isn't something to feel guilty about. The free burrito problem, if I go out there, now some of y'all know me, but if I go out on Cambridge and I hand out free burritos, a lot of people aren't going to eat that, right? They're either going to, no thanks, they're not going to touch it, or it's going to straight in the trash the moment I'm not looking. People spend money on food. And what we eat has something to do with what food we spent money on. Now, this is also true for entertainment and education. People are spending money on those things. Some of our hang-ups, and we've all either been there or have friends who are there, financial stress we don't want to add to it, ask people to spend money that they're not going to spend. You're giving yourself too much credit, they're not going to or they can't. You're asking them to reallocate what they're going to spend on something else on your thing instead, right? Even if it means unsubscribing from Netflix for 1 month for a $15 game, you're not actually asking anybody to spend more money. Again, they can't or they won't. Free makes people wonder, what's wrong with it, right? Why is this free? We spend our time on what's worth paying for. And more importantly, skipping the sales process isn't just not making our case for money. It's not making our case for why they should actually take the time to use it. Charging for our work will raise our bar to make and sell what people actually use. And again, we'll rethink if it isn't. Because you'll get real feedback that way, right? If no one's eating my burritos that are free, I can delude myself and think my burritos are fine because no one's actually telling me. Or even if someone does eat it, they dislike it because they just throw it away. They're not like, they got what they paid for. They don't feel entitled to come back and have a conversation with, like, you didn't meet my needs. It's okay to set and meet people's needs. Discounts are valid. They're part of the ecosystem, but I do think it's a reason why a lot of us have a ton of games in our Steam library we've spent 0 minutes playing because we bought it for 85% off. And so we're only doing enough case to be worth $2 of our time. And we're like, yeah, I'll put it in my library and never play it. But is your goal to get your game in more libraries so you get people to actually play it? In which case it gets us to rethink, how do I sell at a higher value? But again, it also means that the upside of this is that everyone will eventually get your thing on 4th of July or New Year's sales or holiday, whatever. So that's okay too if they just didn't get it when it was new. But you can only run a sale if your price was high enough to begin with. You can't have a $4 product and then run a meaningful sale on it. That ain't gonna work. So our next topic then is how and why did book selling door to door ever make sense? If I give you 40% commissions on a $5 paperback novel, you go door to door knocking on it, most stores aren't opening. Most people open the door aren't gonna buy it. That ain't gonna work, right? It is not gonna make any sense. Waste of your day. Stop immediately. This is my father, Luciano De Leon. He sold books to pay his way through college. Obviously, it was a different era, but it also works in a different way people think. So these are real numbers. I'm talking to him. His goal was to get 30 demonstrations into a day. Early in his career, it took him 100 knocks. Later on, if you have more experience, 60 to 80. Out of those 30 demonstrations, his first year, he'd get 3 sales. He'd sell 3 books a day. What the hell? How does that even pay for college when it was cheaper in the 70s? And again, you got to split it up, right? He got a 40% commission. It also went to author's earnings, the publishing, the printing, the storage, tax overhead, etc. How the heck does that work? Eventually got 10 sales a day. You might think, again, that doesn't seem worth it. By the way, also, I think that high rejection rate is part of why salespeople play so much golf. It's a high rejection thing. We're like, I don't like that my ball's in the rough. I got to let that throw off my next hits, right? A lot of doors slammed in my face or didn't open. First person to talk to, guys, sound like it's my first sales conversation of the day. I think they're practicing that skill. So there's only 4 kinds of books he sold. Now, these aren't the exact books, but it's this pattern. It's a big illustrated Bible, a topical Bible, a set of kids' books that are, it's a set of 6, so arguably I guess there's more than 4, and a health textbook. When you adjust for inflation, those are $80 to $200 purchases. Which, to somebody, apparently 3 to 10 people a day, that was worth it. And now suddenly, 40% of the commission doesn't sound so bad because you get a $240 a day his first year doing it. 3 years of experience in, $800 a day. Again, those are adjusting for inflation already. Those are 76 numbers. 2025 numbers, but you can start to see like that's real money. And he only got paid on commission, so if they didn't sell, they didn't eat. He learned how to get better at it. Now, you might see this model think, how to make that model work for my $5 sci-fi paperback novel? Unfortunately, probably isn't going to. This is part of the challenge of doing business, and it's one of the reasons why, for better or for worse, we go around having conversations at GDC with business people, and they're like, yeah, I don't think that's a case to be made for what you're having right there. Makes us rethink what we're doing. It's part of why Encyclopedia Britannica was such a booming thing for decades. If they could sell one of these sets for $1,000 before inflation, that's a pretty good commission, right? So even 25 years ago in Office Space, this person's selling magazines door to door because long tail subscription adds up in a way that's meaningful worth selling, in a way that's not a briefcase full of paperbacks. Now you might say, Chris, the world is different in 2025, and absolutely is. Look how much we're not splitting our earnings. Like, yeah, we're still giving up to some of our platform or our payment processor, to Steam or to whatever, which, you know, if you work around that, by all means. But if you're selling digital goods, you don't have to manufacture them, transport them. You don't have to spend 13 hours a day trying to get your 30 demonstrations in. If even without that, you're selling a thing that's not a price worth doing real sales work on, it's a chance to reassess, is there something else you could be doing that's valuable to people? Also, when you're selling something that you make and do, you have more options to experiment with, right? You can try different things. You're not sort of at the mercy of, here's what my agency said I got to sell. And avoids the tension of selling the wrong thing. I grew up around a lot of teleconference salespeople in the Midwest. Apparently our accents are widely understood. But a lot of them feel guilty about what they're selling. If you're selling with your own work, you know this is the way you think it ought to be done. This is the right way to do it. And if it's not, you factor that back in from the feedback you're getting. Well, also, when we charge a higher price, we can only sell to people who it's most for. You gotta sell 4 times as many copies at 5 as 20, which means at some point you start making the case for people who may not actually play it, may not actually read it, may not actually need what that course is for. And the higher we can make the numbers work, again, we can find who has a higher impact in their life. With a higher price, you can put more work into finding who most wants it. And if what you're selling can't work at the price, you can work backwards from what would. So you gotta sell a thing worth selling. That's unfortunately rarely a low or zero-ish budget game, which again is where some of us are at. But it leads us to consider other models using our related skills, services, contracting, educational stuff, training games, middleware, like Cam earlier, architectural viz, other kind of product design, ways to use my skills. And there's also lots of stories from the Indiecade. I organized their alumni a bunch of years, where this is how they funded their indie thing, was doing other things, their skills, they could sell to keep money coming in, that they weren't giving up control to a publisher or some outside funding source. So what I figured out at my stage at some point was I didn't know how to sell. I made a 99-cent game for iPhone in 2008. That did okay in 2008. But now I can sell an audio program, I can sell video courses, I can sell online webinars and seminars and stuff. Those I do because they're higher price point, but it's still fundamentally, I'm still in game development skills, different ways I can learn how to package it. Your answer may be different than the shape of mine. People don't actually want low expectations. We're often trying to manage expectations that disappoint people. They want high expectations, they want them met. And we're charging a higher price, we can deliver that better, we can be more wiggle room, we can have a slower sales process, make sure this is a match for them. It allows us to have greater impact per customer, even if it's across potentially fewer total customers. If you don't have a huge reach, it's really hard to reach the kind of volume for really, really small numbers to work. But audio programs, video courses, consulting, youth lessons, training community, I've been able to have much bigger impact in people's lives than I knew how to do from my smaller game sales. So our 3 main ideas: the broken tuba to promote your work, find people who want to know about it; the free burrito to charge for your work, make a case for the time to really use it; and door-to-door sales, figure out a way that you can do a price worth selling. If it's at a loss to let people know about it, you're not going to let people know about it. And that's a rational decision, unfortunately. So does this ever happen to you? Classic infomercial voice. If you feel bad about doing business, I want to help. Contact me at chrisdeliano.com. There's a little consulting private lessons form thingy, but if you're not in business yet, I have some capacity for just no cost calls. And I just said, you should charge people for stuff. But if you're totally starting out, I especially want to, that's going to help me. I need to practice those conversations with what your hangups and questions are. I'm trying to better understand that landscape and help people navigate this. But that's my talk. Thanks, everybody.
All right, next up, Ben.
Any question while Ben is transferring?
Yeah, if anyone has a quick question for Chris.
Yes, Jay. Tuba. So again, I would find other people have it. So realistically, a tuba person, right? I would find what are the instrument shops in town that people might first think to go to, and then be like, okay, well, they're probably going to go there with the tuba. They may not have a way to fix the tuba, but if they know that in town there's an answer, their customers are happier because, well, now their tuba's fixed and got some sort of connections there. Meanwhile, maybe I work out some sort of deal, so they come to me and they're like, well, I don't have a tuba, I have a trumpet. Like, well, that instrument shop, you should go check them out. They're the contact connection. They'll hook you up. But yeah, I would try to, again, just from my own experience, I don't know, I would be wary of trying to start your own tuba channel. Having done that, basically. There's a lot of other people who are focusing as much on audience gathering as you are on building your feasibility.